And now we're live, everybody else. Hello, welcome to the presentation. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Friday to you, wherever you are in this world. Imagine we had to deal with trolls. Imagine that on TikTok. So sub chat on will be remaining on for the rest of the night. Oh, so sorry. Anyway, for everybody else, welcome. Appreciate you being here. Happy Friday to you. I tell you what, thank you, it is miserable hot. I don't know where you are, guys, but I have never experienced this. This heat is dangerous. It is a dangerous type of heat. And so hopefully wherever you are in this world, you're staying comfortable and cool, because I'm in Kentucky, and they're talking about the temperature is supposed to be even worse tomorrow. It's going to 110 degree. That's what it's going to feel like. It is dangerous. I'm telling you what. Thank God for air conditioning, because if I did not have air conditioning, I would say, I'm sorry, guys, ain't no way I'm doing this show. I'd be melting. But anyway, we're live, and we appreciate you guys being here. And of course, TikTok there's a lot of rules and regulations now on TikTok, and so we're trying. Well, thank you there, Chad. We're trying to figure out what it is you can, what it is you can't do. I mean, it's kind of confusing. Really is confusing when you go live. So we really don't know, because once they tell you one thing, and then so anyway, we'll discuss that in just a second. All right, everybody, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to a website, and I'm going to mention this website periodically, because it is 7 o'clock on the Eastern Standard Time, and it's only 4 p.m. on the West Coast. So there's a lot of people usually around 8 o'clock. They kind of tune in as the show progresses. But what I would like for you to do is go to our sponsors' websites at KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com, KGRADB.com. And now look, what you want to do, guys, is you want to click on the shop link, and you want to click on my name. Hello, everybody. This is because you click on my name and purchase those products, if you would. We've been told that the sales have been really, really low. And here's why. We give whatever funding that would go to me, we're donating as a community. We're donating it to a MKS Kids Foundation in Uganda. It's an orphanage that does a beautiful, beautiful job. They help a lot of kids. And so we really want to make sure that we are giving back and helping. So if you get, by the way, I'm very excited to announce that on KGRADB.com on the studio line, we have, in the studio shop, we have brand new Saint Benedict items. Saint Benedict is the patron saint for exorcists. We call upon Saint Benedict to fight against evil. And I think Mr. Producer is going to play a promo for KGRADB Radio and every other social media platform. So go ahead and roll that footage. Of really brand new items over there. So again, go to KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com and click on the shop link. Then what you'll do is you'll see my name. If you click my name, it takes you right to there, and there it is, guys. Really some amazing items. And again, why not? Look, I don't want to frighten too many of you, but we're already 6 months into the year. Christmas is right around the corner, and I tell you what, it is here, whether we like it or not, whether we want it to be here or not, and that's the way it is. Oh, good. So it looks like the trolls have left TikTok, so I might open the chat open to everybody, because now the Detroits have left because we've lost over 100 people in just a matter of 5 minutes because they can't chat and they can't insult me. And so 100 people have left automatically already on TikTok. Think about that for a second in 5 minutes. Let that sink in for just a moment. Just let that sink in. Now, if you want to go to my website because you're bored and have nothing else better to do, you can go to bishopjameslong.long. There it is, bishopjameslong.long. All right, okay, Don. And then if you want to go to the church's website, which is far more important, it's usocc.org. usocc.org. Thank you, Chet. And there we go. That's all there for you. By the way, we have night prayer coming up tonight. Night prayer is at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we certainly do hope that you can join us. I want to remind everybody, if you want to participate in night prayer with us, and if you would like for us to pray for your prayer petition, this is how you have to do this. And this is for everybody. We have night prayer Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard. So here's what you do, okay? If you're on TikTok, I made a TikTok video, and I've already placed it on my TikTok profile. And it basically, it says, place your prayer request for Friday's night prayer. Make sure you do that. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Monica. Make sure you do that right now, because you have until 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so basically an hour, to put your prayer petitions in there. Thanks, guys. All right, so make sure you do that. And include your first name too. That way, because if it's, again, if your username on TikTok is Hot Mama 123, we're not going to say Hot Mama 123 wants to pray for this. No offense. We're just probably not the best thing to say, when you're in night prayer. But nonetheless, that's there. Make sure you put your prayer petitions in now for tonight's night prayer. For those of you who are listening on Facebook, YouTube, and X, and all this other place, and KGRADB Radio, go to usocc.org. And it says to become a parishioner. Click here. It takes you right to the USOCC Facebook page. Okay? And there you go. Now, Miss Wilma is okay. She's depressed. I'm going to see her tomorrow. I'm going to bring her a lot of her items that she has had, that she's collected through the years. I'm going to go to the nursing home tomorrow and see her and just little her Donny Osmond stuff that she's wanted, just little things just to kind of make her happy and smile. So for those of you, Miss Wilma is, as I've known her for almost 30 years. And so she is, she used to do our kids' Bible study and on Saturday night show. No, thank you there, Chrissy. And so, thanks for giving that prescription. That's nice. So anyway, there we go, guys. All right. Now, TikTok has made, before we get into the presentation, TikTok has made a lot of new rules today. And I need help understanding them. Because I understand, thank you there, Corey. I understand the new rule that you cannot play music that is copyrighted. However, at the same time, they've also said, but you can, as long as it's from the TikTok library. So they're saying two different things. So if you guys know on TikTok, so when you're live, you're not allowed to play copyrighted music anymore. However, I have heard from other reliable creators that are checkmarked, and they've been on TikTok for a while. They say you can play music as long as it's in their library during live. So if you guys know the answer to that, let me know. But it seems like there is some confusion. A lot of people are confused. So for those of you in TikTok, clue us in. Because I don't know. So, and now, by the way, and I am going to be playing music tonight. I paid for it. So TikTok, I have paid for the right to use this music. I contacted the owner and said, I want to pay you so that I can play this music. And he said, okay, this is how much it cost. I don't know. I don't know. All right. Okay. So someone's asking, why is there a red X next to my name on TikTok? I'll tell you why. Well, friends, There is a new thing going around now on TikTok for Generation X. So if you're a Generation Xer, then a lot of people on TikTok are putting X right next to the name. And so I guess I need to make a video so that people can say it's not a bad, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But anyway, it's just, letting everybody know that you're a Generation Xer. Yeah. Yeah, it's really going around. It's a new thing. You'll see if you type in Generation X, X or some whatever, you'll see a lot of people who have this red X near the name. So there you go, Chad. That's X. Yeah. So a lot of people are putting a red X right next to their name if you're a Generation Xer, and it's just a new thing that's going around. So no, TikTok does not do that. You have to actually go in. Well, actually, James, you have to actually go into your profile and just change your name. So I thought, well, okay, why not? Whatever. So anyway, well, thank you, Donna. I appreciate that. Very nice. Thank you. Really cool gifts there on TikTok. Thank you. I don't know I have no idea what boomers do. I don't know. Yeah. So X means we're old. We're old. For the Generation Xers, I'm sorry to tell you, that's it. We're ready for the nursing home. That's thank you. Oh, thank you, Janelle. That's very nice. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. So TikTok, I'm going to say it again. I have rights to play this music. I paid for it. And it's stupid that you have to go through all these hoops. But okay. Tonight we're going to talk about a topic that's going to affect every single one of us, no matter what generation you're in. No matter if you're a baby boomer, no matter if you are Generation X or Generation Z or Generation A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Every single one of us will be affected with death. There's no other way to sugarcoat this. And with the passing of Ozzy Osbourne and of course the Hulk Hogan, there a lot of people are just kind of taking it pretty hard. Taking it pretty hard. These are people that a lot of people grew up with, and now you see it's right. So tonight we're going to talk about, I think, a topic that is a really important one, but also it should give you hope. This should not scare you. This should not frighten you. Yeah. Hogan passing kind of hit a large, and Chuck Mangione passed away too. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? It's a lot of people, but life continues. Life doesn't stop. And it seems like, and I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's going by faster. It's going by a lot faster. And, you just kind of want to, for me, it makes me reflect on life itself. So, oh yeah. Crossing guard. All right. So let's get into this. Let's get into our presentation because I want to talk about near-death experiences. And maybe we can chat and hopefully kind of give you some of the, take the fear away from this. So let's explain, first of all, near-death experiences are people who come close to death and later revive, sometimes report memories of unusual experiences that they had while apparently unconscious. Now, people have clinically died and have come back to life. I interviewed several times Dr. Jeffrey Long, and he's no relation. He is a medical doctor. And what is, I have a lot of sound bites from him that I'm going to play tonight from those interviews that are absolutely phenomenal. They are truly phenomenal. And so in 2015, I had a chance to interview him about 10 years ago. And since then, he put a book out and the book is just skyrocketed. And so it's much more difficult to get him as a speaker, as a guest speaker. But Raymond Moody, who's a medical doctor, PhD as well, he's the father of NDE, near-death experiences, and the author books that have sold over 20 million copies. And he described how historical records dating to ancient Greece contain descriptions that explain what NDE is. And it really is it aligns with what the modern concept of NDE is. It is fascinating. So Moody has a book, well, he had a book, it's called Life After Life. It was published in 1975. It presented an initial collection of over 150 contemporary NDEs. So I will be saying NDE a lot. NDE stands for near-death experiences. And thank you for the gifts, everybody. Okay, so the NDE typically includes many of the following: the mind leaving the body, traveling upward, sometimes passing from dark to brilliant light, often within a tunnel. And the light, which is often interpreted to be God, is unbelievable. It transmits joy, peace, love, and comfort. And they meet with deceased loved ones sometimes, and friends and relatives that welcome them. Many people talk about they have a life review in which they understand the meaning of their life and how they have lived it and how it affected others. And most of the time, they never wish to leave this unity with the light source of love. They return to our mortal life, many times say reluctantly, to help those needing them on earth, or sometimes involuntarily, because they are told your time has not yet come. So the NDE typically includes many of the following: the mind leaving the body, again, passing from dark to a brilliant light. A lot of people talk about this bright light. Bruce Grayson, who is a medical doctor, professor at the University of Virginia School of Medicine, and co-founder of the International Association of Near-Death Studies, in 2013 reviewed postulated scientific explanations of NDE, including expectancy, birth memories, altered gases or blood gases, REM, intrusion, which stands for rapid eye movement. Thank you there, Mindful Boss. Toxic or metabolic hallucinations, all this other stuff. But none of that stuff, none of that, he said, would explain an NDE. Well, thank you for all the subscriptions, Mindful Boss. And in addition to the positive aspects during an NDE and after an NDE, he was the first to point out distressing NDEs, which are disturbing, which we're going to talk about tonight, even terrifying ones. And he also noted that most people that have NDEs are mentally healthy, and they must not be confused with what's called depersonalization, dissociation, or post-traumatic stress. Thank you, guys. It's interesting. Dr. Jeffrey Long, who is a medical doctor, said, "My understanding of near-death experiences has made me a better doctor." And also, Pim van Lommel, who's an MD, eminent Dutch cardiologist, has conducted prospective studies on patients having cardiac arrest during hospitalizations, and 18% of 344 successfully resuscitated patients report having NDEs. He also reports 4 other similarly designed prospective studies that have found between 10 and 20% of 562 patients report having them. And Grayson states over 9 million people in the United States have reported having these. In this presentation, in this hour presentation, I'm going to present what Dr. Long stated in an interview with me when I've had him on the show many times. Dr. Long is a Louisiana radiation oncologist, established the nonprofit Near-Death Experience Research Foundation. It is the world's largest collection of people who have clinically died and have come back to life. He also presents 9 lines of clear scientific evidence. Everybody says logic, science. Thank you. He absolutely presents 9 lines of clear scientific evidence that converge on the explanation that NDE cannot be scientifically explained. And we're going to talk about those as well. Most of you know that I had an NDE. I'm going to talk about that experience as well. It was pro profound. Profound. Now, as you know, the church, even the Christian church in general teaches that we have a spiritual and immortal soul. It lives on after death. And near-death experiences, lucid experiences associated with consciousness apart from the body and brain exist. And that's important to understand. I'm going to say that again so you understand what I'm saying. Lucid experiences associated with complete consciousness that is apart from the body and the brain in these NDEs. I do, yeah, I see, David, I do. And many times people will say that they have been told that, the C. David was asking, do you think God is just saying it's not your time? I do, because there have been clear cases where people have clinically died and either Jesus or a loved one said, you have to go back. It's just not, it's not your time right now. I didn't get that experience, but I'm going to tell you mine. Plus, when I did a presentation several years ago on this very topic, I asked people to send me in their stories, and they did. And some of these stories are amazing. Amazing. And I'm going to talk about my near-death experience a little later. So people report moving outside their bodies, passing through hospital walls, even being transported to another place, often moving through a tunnel toward a bright light. These are the major elements of a near-death experience. One, a complete and total out-of-body experience. That's also known as OBE, okay? Feelings of love, joy, peace, painlessness. In some cases, it can be terrifying. Experiencing moving in a tunnel, meeting deceased relatives, encountering a loving light, a white light, receiving a life review, and then if it's not time, obviously back into their body. There are many people who are skeptical. Okay. And the skeptics will say it is a defense mechanism produced by chemicals in a dying brain, that's all it is. It's a hallucination. That I can prove is incorrect. I can prove this. A brain's response to medication or a lack of oxygen. Again, I can prove, and I will prove tonight, that doesn't hold weight. Hallucination or delusion. Nope. Again, I'm going to address every one of these, or even wishful thinking memories that's implanted in the subconscious. There have been over 65 peer-reviewed medical studies on more than 3,500 NDEs. There's information that's gathered under clinical conditions by medical doctors, and patients were clinically deceased during the NDEs. There is no heartbeat. It is a flat EEG, no gag reflex. There are fixed pupils. So we clearly can, absolutely with 100% certainty, we can dismiss hallucinations. We can dismiss the medications that you're given or oxygen deprivation. Because if you have no heartbeat and you have a flat EEG, you're dead. And there are cases where there's no brain activity. Because people are going to say, yeah, but I heard that the brain activity continues after 8 minutes after decease. There have been cases where there was no brain activity. And the person came back to life, telling people what they saw. So that rules this out. This is a profound topic. And I think more than ever, we need to, this is why I said we got to talk about this topic tonight. Because so many people are so overwhelmed and they're stressed and they're anxious. And because of the recent deaths, yes, so, and you may not be, oh, well, I don't care about Ozzy Osbourne, okay, or Hulk Hogan. The fact is there were a lot of people that were truly affected by this. Now, there are medical studies validate NDE reality. It confirmed observations when clinically deceased And also, let me just go into this. Let me go into the actual real. Dr. Pim van Lommel said, who's a medical doctor, until now, the concept was that the brain is the producer of consciousness and the producer of memories. But when you study near-death experiences, we have to reconsider this concept. Perhaps we should consider the brain not as a producer, but as a receiver of consciousness. And again, he's a medical doctor. Now, there are, and there have been reports of people who have had NDEs where it was not heavenly. And we're going to talk about those as well. Matter of fact, 10%, only 10% of the reports of people who have had near-death experiences report it being negative. Can technically a brain dead person be in the afterlife if the body is being kept here? Well, yes, because actually there have been cases where a person was brain dead. They were clinically deceased. The soul was no longer here. And they left their body and they have come back and they've told what they've experienced. So people who were brain dead, some of the stories that I'm going to tell you guys tonight, and I contacted these people. I personally contacted them and I asked them about their cases, to validate. I have absolutely on life support. I see. Actually, yeah, there were a couple of cases where people were on life support and considered brain dead, but they came back. So let's get into this, to the meat, and this is going to be profound. All right. Although most people who have come to death say they remember nothing, around 10 to 20% later report that something happened. That something is often described as near-death experience. A Gallup poll published in 1982 led to an estimate that 12 to 15 million Americans personally experience an NDE. Now, there's some controversy as to how to define NDE. Researchers have not reached a consensus on how to define it, really. The research definition that many people use, the NDE must occur at the time of near-death physical compromise so severe that without improvement, permanent, irreversible death would occur. So NDEers are generally unconscious and often clinically dead. NDEs can occur in children and adults. They do occur in atheists and believers. That's important to note, because a lot of people will say it's only believers. Incorrect. Many atheists have experienced this. They occur in physicians, scientists, ministers, priests, people from all walks of life. And NDEs have been reported throughout history. The earliest recorded NDE was from the time of Plato, and from all cultures from all around the world. An important point is that you do not have to have physically died without cessation of breathing or heart function to have an experience like a NDE. So experiences seemingly identical to NDE associated with clinical death have been reported in a variety of circumstances in which there was no associated life-threatening event. So such circumstances may include, for example, non-fatal traffic accidents or mountaineering accidents, childbirth. Experiences similar to NDE are relatively common in terminally ill patients. They are referred to as deathbed visions. And these experiences may be collectively referred to as NDE-like experiences. So NDEs are one part of a spectrum of significant human experiences. So an experience can be deeply significant and meaningful. What is clear is that, and this is abundantly clear, and NDE, near-death experiences, they are not a dream. They are not a hallucination or mental or psychiatric dysfunction. They are real experiences. And virtually all NDE experiences that Dr. Long said that he experienced, felt that the experience was real, significant, and meaningful. And when asked directly if the experiences was dreamlike in any way, virtually all NDE experiences that Dr. Long said no. So I asked Dr. Long, let me just turn this on.
Battery 90%. Connected to new iPhone 1.
So I asked Dr. Long, and again, I'm going to turn this on.
Battery 90%. Connected to new iPhone 1.
So I asked Dr. Long. That's weird. What in the world? So I asked Dr. Long. That was weird. Wow, that is kind of weird.
Battery 90%. Connected to iPhone.
That was weird. Wow, it's reading on this. It can't read on this because this doesn't. It's not even connected to this. That's really strange. So
battery 90%. Connected to iPhone.
That's really strange. So okay, that doesn't make sense because it's not even connected to this. Hold on, I gotta fix this. Hold on, one sec. Hold on, one sec. Doesn't make sense because it's not even connected to this. Hold on, I gotta fix this. Hold on, one sec. Hold on, one sec. Doesn't make sense because it's not even. Wow. That's kind of. Okay, well, I'm glad I have a backup on this one. That's never done that before. It's reading this. See, it's reading this. iPhone. Yeah, Mr. Producer, that's kind of weird. Yeah, Mr. Producer, that's kind of. Okay, we're just going to turn that down here. I'm really glad that I have a backup on this. That's kind of cray-cray. Okay. Yeah. And I can't do this because if I go over here and I turn it off, then you guys, I'll turn TikTok off, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to make sure that it's not connecting to my desktop, which is never done before. Nope. That's really weird. Yeah, I mean, because I use this every night. Just hang tight, everybody. I use this every night. I might have to restart on TikTok, and because I don't know why it's reading it. It shouldn't be reading it. Reading it. It shouldn't be reading it. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to restart this. Join me in about 1 minute. That is really odd. I don't understand that. It's not even connected.
Yeah, I do. My IT elf has to get on it. Twisted Wigs, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you.
Who the hell is this picking up? Wow. Okay, folks. This I have never experienced this. This is really, really peculiar. Okay. I'm going to restart this. Bear with me. All right. That's okay. Let's see if this works. Hold on one second. This is really. Hold on, guys. I've got this major malfunction with technology right here, and I can't figure this out. Okay, it's connected. Bear with me. Okay. Uno segundo, por favor. All right. Very weird. Very weird. The things that happen, when. Okay. That was kind of strange. It was even picking up on TikTok when there wasn't even TikTok playing. Okay. All right, folks. Well, yeah. Hey. I think we got it all fixed here, and that's kind of cool, actually, if you think about it. There's no logical explanation for that. None. Absolutely no logical explanation for what just happened. Because there was nothing playing. Okay. So anyway, before I was rudely interrupted by this, it's all we'll just blame it on Mr. Producer. Okay. All right. So this is, I asked Dr. Long, I asked him, can you please define what is a near-death experience from your perspective? And this is what Dr. Long said, who's a world-leading expert on near-death experiences.
No two near-death experiences are the same. I think a good definition of near-death experience is, as the name implies, two components. The people are near death. In other words, they're having a close brush with death. They're so severely physically compromised that they're generally unconscious, and they may be clinically dead with no heartbeat. But at that time, when they're unconscious and very, very close to death, when a conscious, lucid experience should be impossible, they have the experience part of a near-death experience. Perhaps as many as 5% of adults have had a near-death experience at some time in their life, so they're not really rare. By that estimate, you would guess that there would be approximately 15 plus million people in the United States who could have potentially had a near-death experience.
Very cool. Again, this is for those of you just tuning in. I've interviewed Dr. Long several times, and I'm playing several of the sound bites that I did when I asked him about this, because there's so much. There are so many things that he graciously, he was on twice, and I asked him to explain near-death experiences and what they were and what they were not. Because a lot of people, I think, have a misconception of near-death experiences. And so for me, it's like, okay, I want you to explain everything. And he did. Let me pull this up and I'll bring this for you guys. So bear with me while everything was messed up there. Okay. So I also asked him, of course, the question was, tell me a little bit more, obviously, about the near-death experiences. What was there anything? How many people have had them? Talk a little bit more about that. And this is what he said.
Yeah, good question.
Thanks.
Actually, and that's an important question, because the substantial majority of people that do nearly die do not have a near-death experience. Only about 10 to 20% of people that have that close brush with death will have a near-death experience. And we absolutely have no idea why that is. It's been very well studied over the last 35 years, looking at a variety of demographic issues, age, cultural background, religious belief or lack of religious belief. Absolutely no variable that we can find will predict whether an NDE, and we'll use the term NDE to abbreviate near-death experience. We can't tell from anything that we understand about demographic variables whether someone will have a near-death experience or not.
I think it's very important to understand, and when you because there's such a misconception, and I think especially with near-death experiences. So just bear with me, because I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. Well, thank you. Oh, thank you. Beautiful. Thank you, Starla. Thank you. So I'm trying to regain some type of organization here. because everything messed up when I did that. All right. Weird. That's just having a weird experience here. So the question that I ask is how many people actually have them? And he briefly mentioned that. Let me just talk about this for a second.
The probability of a near-death experience occurring during a life-threatening event is the same worldwide. So that, again, that's not, there's only been like,
Let me start that again.
Probability of a near-death experience occurring during a life-threatening event is the same worldwide. So that, again, that's not, there's only been like, there are two good studies about the incidence of near-death experience. It was the United States, Germany, and Italy. Those are really the only countries where we know it's about 5% of the population has had a near-death experience. But based on that, we think probably whether you have a close brush with death doesn't make any difference. What country in the world you live in, you'll have that same probability of a near-death experience.
And of course, the next question, of course, people always ask then, well, when you have a near-death experience, how much of this is geographically speaking? Is there a geographic location? Is there culture? Is it something of this nature that would perhaps maybe explain this away? Is it more cultural or what? And that was the question that I asked him. And this is the answer for that.
Yeah, that's one of the most fascinating parts of what we study. Well, good gosh, we have portions of our website with the survey that we have for near-death experiencers has been translated into over 20 languages. So we have by far the largest cross-cultural study of near-death experience that's ever been possible before. And in fact, we have now about 36 non-Western near-death experiences. So based on that fairly substantial data set, I am reasonably confident in stating that near-death experiences are the same worldwide, no matter what your cultural background.
That's important to understand. Because if people will say, well, but, if it's more Western, or if it's more, maybe perhaps religion, if it's a religious, if it's a culture that's primarily, focused on this religion or that religion. What's interesting is that, thank you, the near-death experiences, thanks, Alex, thank you, you're welcome, seem to be, there's no common denominator as far as what's all Christians or Muslim or Jewish or non-denominational. It's everybody. It's across the board. And so what I ask, the next question is, well, explain then what typically happens during a near-death experience. And this is with Dr. Long. For those of you who are just joining, I'm Bishop Long, and I spoke to Dr. Long, who's a world-leading expert. Thank you, Alex. World-leading expert on near-death experiences. And I've had him on for quite some time, and we appreciate him always jumping on. By the way, everybody, if you're on TikTok, make sure you follow my friend Alex right there. Just a nice guy, really a nice guy. He spreads a lot of positivity, and we need more positivity, whether it be on TikTok or Facebook or wherever else. We need more positivity. So if you want to find a TikToker that is positive and that's kind, make sure you follow him. Okay. So it's Alex. I pinned it, everybody. Follow my friend Alex. Okay. So my question that I asked him was what typically happens during a near-death experience? And again, later on, I'll talk about my experience. And most of you know, but some of you don't. And so here's what he says, what typically happens. And this is a medical doctor. What typically happens during a near-death experience.
As I said, no two near-death experiences are the same, but if you study a bunch of them, and I've now studied over 2,000, you see a very consistent pattern of elements. Very often, the very first thing that happens after the person is unconscious or clinically dead from an accident or illness that nearly killed them, often one of the first things is what's called an out-of-body experience. Their point of consciousness generally rises above their body. Occasionally it goes more horizontally, but in general, consciousness rises above their body, and from that vantage point, they can see and often hear ongoing earthly events at a time they're unconscious or clinically dead. And often that involves dramatic descriptions of their own resuscitation as people frantically try to revive them. Well, in following that, many near-death experiencers describe passing into or through a tunnel, variably described. Often at the end of the tunnel is a light. Now, this is no ordinary earthly light. It's mystical. It can be brilliant. One person described it as being like 1,000,000 times 1,000,000 suns in intensity, and yet it never hurts the eyes to look at it. it's perceived as being beautiful, even seems to have a living characteristic. There then may be a life review in which they see portions or all of their prior life. They may see deceased loved ones that they knew from their earthly life. These are joyous reunions. They may see beautiful unearthly realms and hear music, for example, that is beautiful beyond anything they've heard on earth. These realms have often been described as heavenly realms, and that's probably an apt description. They may encounter buildings, landscapes that are so beautiful they have colors with no earthly correlate. And then finally, for many near-death experiences, they have a decision about returning to their earthly body.
These are profound sound bites. You know, we talk a lot about science and things of this nature. NDE, near-death experience, has been extensively documented in medical literature, with hundreds of scholarly articles regarding NDE published in the medical and scientific literature. There are a lot of skeptics of NDE, but here's the deal with skeptics. Skeptics have not been able to find a plausible biological or physiological explanation for a near-death experience. And that's according to Dr. Long. And this failure on the part of skeptics explains the large number of varied and generally unaccepted alternative explanations. So when they say, well, it could be this, no, but what about this NDE? And then that just, you know, refutes that argument. The reason there are so many skeptical explanations of NDE is that there's no one or several physiological, biological, or cultural explanation of NDE that makes sense, even to the skeptics. The level of consciousness during the experience is generally described as fully alert, and often, as one experiencer described, far more conscious than humanly normal. And these experiences seem quite apart from anything encountered in daily living. When Dr. Long did a survey, and they were asked, following the experience, have you had any other events in your life, medications or substance which produced any part of the experience? And 81% said no. So clearly we're impressed with both the similarities and dissimilarities of NDE experiencers. And while some experiences have a detailed and even a prolonged experience, others have a shorter and less dramatic experience. But all the NDE experiences, thank you, are significant and important. No two, as Dr. Long says, no two NDE experiences are identical. But within a group of experiences, certain patterns become evident. And one research that they did is based over 2,000 NDEs shared directly on their website. And we're going to talk about this in just a second. One thing that I ask him is, how real are NDEs? How would you describe them based on your study and speaking to people? How real are they? And this is what he said.
My book, I published that in January 2010, and to my substantial surprise, it very quickly became a New York Times bestseller, which was, needless to say, a huge shock. But, you know, on the other hand, I was, delighted about that. One of the first things, and of course it's going to take a while to slog through all 9 lines of evidence,
I'll talk about that.
I think one of the first things that we talked about are the fact that people are supposed to be, and they are, unconscious or clinically dead at this time, and yet they're having very lucid, organized, consistent, crystal clear consciousness, if you will. I can tell you as a physician, you know, when you work with people that have coded, their heart stopped, you've had to resuscitate them, it's very binary. Either they had a near-death experience and they had a typically lucid, organized series of elements that we consistently observe, or they had absolutely no experience whatsoever, or only minimal fragmentary experiences. So it's the concept that you're having crystal clear consciousness while clinically dead is medically inexplicable. So that's number one of the 9 lives. But the second one, probably one of my favorite one, is, and this really cuts it to the quick, about the reality of near-death experiences. If near-death experiences were caused by any physiological, you name it, oxygen, carbon dioxide, chemistry, electrical activity, any possible brain function whatsoever, you would expect when they have that out-of-body experience, given the fact they're unconscious or clinically dead, that initial part of the near-death experience, at the time they're out of body, at the time they're looking around well above their body, you would absolutely expect that there would be some inaccuracy. In other words, there would be some distortion. What they see wouldn't be real. And yet in my study, I studied over 280 near-death experiences sequentially shared through very rigorous methodology. And I reviewed these experiences to see if there was any reason for me or the person sharing the experience to believe that any part of their observations was unrealistic in any way. And the bottom line is 98% of these out-of-body observations were absolutely realistic in every variable. And in fact, people would often bring back very accurate observations geographically very far from the physical body and far outside of any possible physical sensory awareness. During a near-death experience, they may or may not have a discussion, or if you will, a decision about returning to their earthly body. Many, many near-death experiencers, obviously at the end of their near-death experience, do describe that process. Now, some just simply have the experience, and then at some point during the near-death experience, boom, they're back in their body. But it's a fascinating group of people where they're dialoguing typically with other loving spiritual beings that are present while they're making up their mind. And consistent with your recollection of near-death experiences, you're absolutely right. The great majority of near-death experiencers do not want to return to their earthly body. Just think about how amazing that is. I mean, these are people that have friends, family, children, loved ones. Earth is all that they've known for years, decades of their life, and yet here they are in their near-death experience. They have intensely positive emotions. Every part of their being suggests to themselves that this is their real home, not Earth. They really feel that they want to stay there. I mean, it's really tough to make a conscious decision to leave what is literally for these people a heavenly realm to return to Earth. And believe me, Earth ain't heaven. And the dialogue that goes on here and why they choose to Earth is one of the fascinating sort of subtexts of the near-death experience research.
Again, that was Dr. Long, who is a medical doctor and one of the world's leading expert on near-death experiences. I asked Dr. Long during one of the interviews okay, but what about oxygen? You know, there's people inevitably are going to say, well, this is just oxygen deprivation. That's all this is. So you can blah, 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 blah all day long, but this is just the oxygen. This is the brain struggling, and it is just a mirage. It's an illusion. What would you have to say to those people who say this? And this is what Dr. Long said about this. And again, it was a pretty remarkable statement. Listen to what he says.
Oh, yeah, and there's lots of other reasons that near-death experiences cannot be any kind of physiological, chemical, electrical brain activity whatsoever. And we talked about the fact that out-of-body experiences are completely close to 100% reliable. Even people born totally blind have had highly visual near-death experiences. And that is absolutely medically inexplicable. I mean, that single-handedly blows away any explanation other than what near-death experiencers themselves almost uniformly believe, and that is their real experiences in another realm. One of the other things that people find very, very convincing is, again, if these experiences were associated with brain function at all, what about near-death experiences under general anesthesia? Under that total blanket of sleep of anesthesia, you can't have any conscious experience, and yet some people have complications of anesthesia or surgery or as a result of their pre-existing trauma or illness. Prior to surgery, their heart stops during surgery. And yet these experiences where people's heart stop while they're under general anesthesia, the content of their near-death experience is essentially absolutely the same as NDEs occurring under all other circumstances, including the degree of consciousness and alertness during the experience. And if the anesthesia modified the near-death experience at all, it would be inconceivable that they'd have the same level of consciousness and alertness, and yet they do. A near-death experience is sort of a transitionary thing. It changes as the experience progresses, if you will. Certainly during the initial part, I would believe what the near-death experiencers say, that is, they are some non-physical self with their point of consciousness above their body. But by the time they're into these unearthly, if you will, heavenly realms, then all of a sudden things change fairly dramatically. Almost uniformly, near-death experiencers say time does not exist, or at least time as we know on Earth absolutely does not exist. Communication is essentially always non-physical. Telepathic isn't really a good term for it, but it's like that. Motion is often non-physical. In other words, they're not physically moving, but they can will themselves, or they can move often at what would be overwhelming earthly speeds, pretty much in a variety of places and ways that they want. Thought can be grossly accelerated. I mean, we talked about life reviews briefly, but can you imagine seeing most or all of your prior life during a time of unconsciousness of a few minutes after a cardiac arrest? And yet that's what people report. So I think what near-death experiencers are describing, what they often allude to, is that this seems to be some, clearly, it's absolutely not a separate third-dimensional world the way we know it. I mean, that's clearly true. There seems to be, in fact, a lot of evidence points to from near-death experiences that they're existing in, if you will, a fourth or higher physical, to use a term, dimension, but it's something radically different from what we know on Earth.
That is profound, isn't it? It really is. And in a moment, I'm going to talk several people who have sent me messages, and I've asked them to, I've talked to them about their near-death experiences. I'm going to be presenting that and mine. When you're talking about near-death experiences, one thing that Dr. Long found is there's several things that really are very similar. And one, he said, there's difficulty in explaining the NDE. The extraordinary experiences may be difficult to describe in words. So when people come back after having an NDE, it's very difficult to put it into words. Like mine, when I say joy and happiness, that didn't even come close to what I experienced. Also, what most NDEs, they have an associated life-threatening event, but not all the time. So there's generally physical compromise to the point of unconsciousness or even clinically death. There's also a separation many times of consciousness from the body. So viewing the surroundings from a vantage point other than the physical body. Some see their bodies as often frantic resuscitation efforts. They are generally able to hear what's being said, often to the considerable embarrassment of medical personnel involved in the resuscitation. In the out-of-body state, they are not able to interact physically with anyone or anything. There's often a sense of peace, virtually never discomfort. Also, one thing that seems to be very common is that the ability to see and hear details of ongoing earthly events, which may be close or even distant from the body while unconscious. Thank you. So, these details are often later confirmed by others who are generally astonished and even mystified that the experiencer was aware of the events while unconscious. He actually has a few NDEs where the NDEer was on the way to the morgue or actually in the morgue when they regained consciousness after their death. Although also what most people say is experiencing intensely powerful emotion. So these emotions may include ecstasy, fear, peace, calm. Most NDEs are associated with very pleasant emotions, but there are few that are with fear, emptiness. Most people report hearing distinctive sounds. So like experiencers may report hearing a variety of unusual sounds or noise. I did. People talk a lot about passing into and through a dark tunnel. So the tunnel is variably described regarding its appearance and size. The Dr. Long says we have not encountered an NDE with a claustrophobic sense in the tunnel. And movement in the tunnel may be described as relatively slow or extremely fast. Also, many people talk about encountering with a bright, mystical light. I did see this. And by the way, I told Dr. Long when I interviewed him my NDE experience, and he's an expert. And he said, you absolutely 100% had an NDE, no question about it. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So many people talk about a mystical light. Also, many people talk about meeting others. So the experiencer may encounter other spiritual beings or departed loved ones. Deceased pets, by the way, have been encountered, as well as other animals like butterflies and horses and birds. The encounter with others is generally described as joyous and loving. Some people say that they have a life review. I did not. So experiencers are presented with a rapid panoramic review of their lives, and the life review may include brief reviews of moments in their past life or extremely detailed with a presentation of how the experiencer's actions affected others around them. Other people talk about seeing or visiting beautiful locations, like beautiful cities and libraries and gardens. Some say a sense of knowing universal order and purpose. So some people who have clinically died have a sense of deep understanding of the universe. Many NDEers state that they were shown enormous knowledge, but could not return with it. Some people report reaching a boundary, like if they're walking with Jesus or a loved one, that they can only go so far, and then, the Jesus or their loved ones say you have to go back. Others report an awareness of future life events. Some have reported a decision. Oh, well, thank you there, Don. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Very nice. Thank you. There's a gift that someone is offering on TikTok. Very kind. Some say, okay, you can return if you wish, or you can stay. Many people report returning to the body, or even having special gifts. There have been others who have completely changed behaviors and attitudes of life. Now, I asked Dr. Long about, has anyone experienced any form of depression coming back? When you experience this life-altering event, have you had anybody talks about depression? And this is what he says.
Oh, that's very common following a near-death experience. I mean, you can just imagine the overwhelming joy, bliss, connection, sense of love, very profoundly knowing, not guessing or hoping for, but people in these near-death experiences in these unearthly realms know that that's their real home. You can imagine, and of course they have no pain. There may be their deceased loved ones there. Then all of a sudden, boom, they're thrown back or ultimately have to decide to come back to their earthly body. It's not at all unusual for people to have some real adjustment reactions. They realize how difficult their earthly life is. They realize that they don't want to be here. They so want to be back in that incredibly beautiful area that they were at. It's tough for people. In fact, people that have depression after near-death experiences, that can go on for a fairly long time. Generally, they slowly get out of it, and it takes time, but that's a tough thing for people that have a near-death experience to go through.
Actually, yeah, that's a great question. So Beth is saying, I wonder how many unbelievers have turned to Christ. Actually, several. There have been people who have experienced, maybe they did not have faith and they completely changed. So there have been cases of that. Now, I did ask about, talk a little bit about the life review. When people have had that, what have people reported that to you? And this is what he said by people who having a life review during their near-death experience.
A life review is a real fascinating part of a near-death experience. They may see a portion or all of their prior life. Now, when they see all of their prior life, occasionally they have what we call panoramic life reviews, where they not only see and are aware of all of their prior life events, but they actually remarkably sense and become aware of what people they were interacting with felt, thought as a consequence of their interaction with them. Sometimes I almost have to pinch myself when I read these NDEs and say, wait a minute, these folks are unconscious or clinically dead, and here they are processing all of their prior life during the time of unconsciousness, ranging from a number of seconds to minutes. That shows, and it's an excellent example of the tremendous acceleration of consciousness that occurs. One thing that I always point out when it comes to life reviews, a lot of people, when they hear about life reviews and near-death experiences, their knees get wobbly and their face turns white, and they go, uh-oh, I've done some things in my life I'm not proud of. And so I would hasten to point out that during near-death experiences, essentially always the life review occurs often in the presence of a loving, compassionate other being or beings, and essentially never is there any judgment externally about their prior life. If there's any judgment, right or wrong, or things need to change, or I could have done this better, any of those judgmental concepts at all only seems to come from the near-death experiencer themselves and no other external source.
Very interesting. And I did ask about, and in a moment I'll talk about mine and then share a few more things. I did ask about deathbed visions, and if he could explain that from a medical perspective.
Yeah, I can tell you the people that do hospice that care for the terminally ill are obviously fascinated with my work, and I've talked to several of their groups already, and I'm sure I'll do more of that in the future. There's a whole spectrum of what happens to people at the end of life. I mean, obviously dying is frightening, and, it's associated with all the stuff physically, mentally, emotionally that goes on with that. So, certainly there's going to be some people that have, it's sort of they'll cry out, or they'll be in distress, which is understandable. But I would point out quickly that one of the experiences that I consider to be in the spectrum of near-death experiences that can occur at the end of life is what's called a deathbed vision. A deathbed vision involves them seeing often a light, often they're spiritual beings, often there's a sense of love. They may be near death and unconscious even for a prolonged period of time, all of a sudden open up their eyes, look at something, and they'll even be surprised that other people don't see, often a deceased loved one that is there with them. And that these types of experiences can be incredibly comforting. Now, there's actually a growing body of scholarly literature on this, and of course, the first thing I would think as a doctor is, well, heck, what kind of medicines are they on? And yet, the transition from non-lucidity or hypo-lucidity into a very lucid state and a very positive emotional reaction and a sudden, almost like a swan song, kind of coming back to life and glowing a little bit and seeing these beautiful apparitions is certainly, and in fact, a lot of what they see has a lot in common with the elements of near-death experience. I think all of that points to the reality of this in a number of people at the end of life.
Okay. Now, for those of you just joining, so I am Bishop Long. We're talking, I'm sharing some sound bites from Dr. Jeffrey Long, who is a world-leading expert on near-death experiences, who is a medical doctor. I've had him on a couple times. But before we continue, let's do it very, very quickly because there's a lot of new people who just came in. I want to remind you, everybody, please make sure you go to our sponsor shop. It is KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com, KGRADB.com. Click on the shop link and you'll see my name. They have brand new St. Benedict items there. St. Benedict is the patron saint for police officers as well as exorcists. Some beautiful brand new items. Now, please purchase as much as you can. And the reason being is because 100% of the profit that I would receive as a community, we are going to donate 100% of that to MKS Kids Foundation. You can find them on TikTok. They're in Uganda. They're an orphanage. They do beautiful work for many, many kids, many children, putting a roof over their head and food in their bellies and clean water and an education. Also medical. I mean, they really do a fantastic job. So if you can, please, again, go to KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com and click on the shop link. You'll see my name and just there's the shop there. Buy as much as you possibly can. Christmas is just right around the corner, 6 months away, but it'll be here before you know it. And if you would, just purchase those things so we can help this community because they desperately need our assistance. And why not? You're doing a good cause and you're getting some great products at the same time. Okay, let's talk about Dr. Long's 9. They're called 9 lines of evidence in his book. And yes, Alex, I'm absolutely convinced. So let's talk about these 9 lines of evidence, guys. This is from Dr. Long. For those of you just joining us, I talked to Dr. Long, who is a medical expert he's a doctor, and he's a leading expert on near-death experiences. These are his 9 lines to prove that near-death experiences are real. Listen to this. These are profound. 1, there's crystal clear consciousness. The level of consciousness and alertness during near-death experiences is usually even greater than the experience in everyday life, though NDEs generally occur when a person is unconscious or clinically dead. And this high level of consciousness, while physically unconscious, is medically inexplicable. And additionally, the elements of NDEs generally follow the same consistent and logical order in all age groups all around the world, which refutes the possibility that NDEs have any relation to dreams or hallucinations. And that's true. So basically what he's saying is no matter what your age, no matter what your culture, no matter what your religion, Every single NDE seems to have some type of logical order universally. Now, that's not in every one, but it's for the majority. So therefore, it couldn't be a hallucination because it would all be subjective. It would all be different. The second line, realistic out-of-body experiences. So the out-of-body experiences are often one of the most common elements in NDEs. And what NDEers, that's near-death experience, see and hear of earthly events in the out-of-body state is almost always realistic. And when the NDEers or others later seek to verify what was observed or heard during the NDE, the out-of-body experience observations are almost always confirmed as completely accurate. Even if the OBE observations during the NDE include events far from the physical body. So there have been cases where people were clinically dead, they left their body, and they were able to tell what the family was discussing down the hall. Now, that in of itself proves that this is not a hallucination. And there have been cases where people have done this. So that fact alone rules out the possibility that near-death experiences are related to any known brain functioning or sensory awareness. Also, number 3, the third line, heightened senses. Not only are heightened senses reported by most people who have NDEs, normal or supernormal vision has occurred in those with significantly impaired vision, even legal blindness. There have been people who were completely blind, totally blind since birth, and they had a near-death experience where they were clinically dead, and they came back and they reported everything they saw in color. They described the color. Number 4, consciousness during anesthesia. Many NDEs occur while under general anesthesia at a time when any conscious experience is impossible. While some skeptics claim that these NDEs may have the result of too little anesthesia, nope, it ignores the fact that some NDEs result from anesthesia overdose. And the description of NDE differs greatly from that who experiences anesthetic awareness. And by the way, there's a 0% chance, 0%, that when you're under propofol, you cannot dream. It doesn't exist. And that is from Dr. Long. He said it's not possible, 0% chance, it can't happen. Scientifically, it cannot happen. Also, people, the fifth line is a perfect playback. Life reviews and near-death experiences include real events that previously took place in the lives of those having the experience, even if the events were forgotten or happened before they were old enough to remember. Also, the sixth line is family reunions. During an NDE, the people encountered are virtually always deceased, usually relatives of the person having the experience. Sometimes they're even relatives who pass away before the NDE was even born. Now, some experience children experiences. That's 7. The near-death experience of children, including very young children who are too young to have developed concept of deaths, religion, or near-death experiences, are essentially identical to those of other children and adults. So this refutes the possibility that NDE is produced by pre-existing beliefs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarla. The eighth line that proves that near-death experience is valid is worldwide consistency. Near-death experiences appear remarkably consistent around the world and across many different religions and cultures. And then the 9th line that proves is after effects. It is very common for people to experience major life changes after having near-death experiences. And these after effects are often powerful, lasting, life-enhancing, and changes generally follow. So that's what he argues, as these are clear lines, 100%, that would refute any type of argument that this was just make-believe. Okay. Yeah, now we're going to talk about some cases. And then I will tell you mine. Oh, by the way, now I asked him about the blind woman. I said, tell us about the case for the blind woman who had an NDE, and this is what Dr. Long said.
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest ones would be Vicky, who is 100% totally and completely blind from birth. Her description, her vision is absolutely stunning. From the time she had her out-of-body experience and saw her body for the first time on the gurney in the emergency room, identifying herself by correlating her newfound sense of vision with the feel of the ring, the incredible detailed description she describes, actually, interestingly, 360-degree vision. Vicky cannot understand why you and I and everyone else we know has, if you will, pie-shaped visual fields. That was not her life experience. I think that just sort of like, it's almost like the Rosetta Stone of near-death experiences. It's experiences like that, the totally blind from birth with highly visual NDEs, that you can say that single-handedly eliminates any physiological or psychological or cultural cause of near-death experiences. They are what near-death experiencers believe they are, real glimpses of another realm.
Now, here are some cases. I asked people several years ago when I did this, and I asked people to send me their story. I did contact these folks because I asked them, put their name, and their phone number, and I contacted every single one of them. And let's talk a little bit about these cases. They are profound. I'll just call her Alice. She is 37 years old. She's a florist from Vermont. She suffered cardiac arrest while arranging flowers for an upcoming wedding. As her heart stopped, Alice found herself in a beautiful garden. Now, she described the colors were more vivid than any earthly flowers she had ever imagined. The air, she says, was filled with the scent of lavender and a feeling of complete peace. And as she wandered through the garden, she encountered her grandmother. She passed away when Alice was a teenager. Her grandmother spoke no words, yet somehow communicated that her time in this realm was only temporary. Alice awoke to find herself in the hospital, surrounded by worried family members. Her experience in the garden inspired her to start a community garden project to spread the peace that she felt. She also describes, and she says, that she flatlined and she was dead. According to the doctors, there was absolutely nothing for 9 minutes. Nothing. And she returned. The next case that I spoke to, Samuel. Now he had passed away since, but he was a 60-year-old church choir director. He was in Alabama, and he had when he was doing a routine surgery, it went awry. And during the moments when his heart stopped to function, Samuel found himself standing in a grand hall filled with celestial choir. He said that the music was unlike anything he had ever heard or even wrote himself, harmonious, transcending mortal understanding. Each note, he said, seemed to resonate with his very soul, filling him with an overwhelming sense of love. The choir wasn't composed of familiar faces, but beings that he said it was made of pure light. Their song conveyed to Samuel that he had more work to do on earth. They did not want to return, he said, encouraging him to share the love and joy that he felt in the transcendent place. When he returned to his body, he was filled with new inspiration, dedicating himself to writing music that uplifted and healed people. And I asked him how long had he flatlined. 11 minutes. 11 minutes. And I asked each of them about their flatlining. The next story was Javier. Javier, he is a 43 now he's more, but he was a 43-year astrophysicist from California, scientist, logic, through and through. And he was caught, unfortunately, in a freak accident in an observatory. It was a small observatory. It's not one of the bigger ones. And scientists were running a test on new equipment. There was an electrical surge. He said that shot through the facility, causing his heart to stop. And during his brush with death, Javier found himself walking among the stars, he said. Each one was brilliant orb of information and warmth. He said the universe became his playground. And he encountered beings made of starlight who communicated profound wisdom about life, the interconnectedness of all things. There was no heartbeat for 7 minutes during this time. And after being resuscitated, Javier dedicated parts of his work to studying the philosophical implications of space exploration and inspired by the mysterious harmony that he witnessed. He did say, by the way, that he was able to see when he left his body, he was able to see one of the individuals unplug all the electrical outlets in the thing, and that person received like a kind of a shock too, but that didn't affect his body. He was able to, when he came back, and he said, and I saw you unplug everything, and when you did that, you felt that shock, and you thought you were going to be in the same situation. That in of itself proves something is there. And by the way, that was in another room. So it wasn't in the same room. So people will say, yeah, but the brain might have heard it subconsciously. No, his friend was in another room unplugging everything for this electrical shock. And he came back and said, I saw you do this, and it shocked you. That by itself. The next one is Mara. She was a 52-year-old nurse from Chicago. And she had a drowning accident. She was on vacation in Hawaii. But despite moments when her life hung in the balance, Mara experienced the sensation of floating in crystal clear waters. And warmed by radiant light, the waters, she says, were healing. So there's a current that was pushing her down, and she couldn't get up to the surface. And she just, after her body stopped, convulsing, she just said that there was this peace. And the water, she says, were like it was healing. It washed away not just her fear, but all the pain leaving her. And she just, it was a very profound sense of tranquility. And she says she blacked out, and then she came to, she met a presence that conveyed to her, the importance of healing and compassion, and urging her to continue her work on Earth. She didn't know who this person was, but the only thing she remembers is she came to while she was on the beach. She was coughing up water. And so she actually founded a support group for trauma survivors, offering counseling and even therapies for people by the deep peace that she experienced. This individual, Emily, 24, she's 24-year-old, and she had a severe asthma attack in New York, became unconscious. So the way she described it is she found herself in this beautiful room. She blacked out, and she said, it's like I opened my eyes and I was in this room. And this beautiful, she just kept saying beautiful, beautiful, everything. And she said there were books, and she loves books, and there are books, and it was vibrant. She kept saying it was vibrant. And she saw a woman that looked very much like her mom, who had passed away, and guided her through the aisles and knowledge and wisdom. And then her mom showed her a book and had empty pages in it. And she said, her mom told her, this is your future, and it hasn't been written yet. And she said, it's not your time. You have to go back, and you have to continue to write your story. She was revived by paramedics. She was completely no activity for 8 minutes. And so she did come back, and she said she was a little angry, because she wanted to stay there. But she has since, she's writing about her experience. And I don't know if there's a book out, because this was several years that I spoke to her. Ivan, he has passed away. He was actually from Russia, and he was a 65-year-old painter, retired painter. And he was painting inside his studio, and he had a massive stroke. And his wife was with him. And during the interlude, where his life, he said, was in the balance, Ivan found himself in it like a breathtaking, like a symphony of colors is what he called it. And colors that he could have never imagined were just all around him. I mean, it was everywhere. And there was some music he could hear in the back, and he said it was just coming to life. Shapes, colors, everything. His wife said that he had been deceased. There was no response, nothing for 5 minutes. And he said he met a figure that he believed to be the spirit of his favorite artist. And the spirit whispered encouragement and urged Ivan to paint with his heart, not with just with his eyes. And so he began talking about this in his experience. One more was, a couple more. Bethany, she's from Kansas, and she was hiking in the mountains, and a rock slide trapped her underneath. So there was a terrible, and it knocked her out and completely unconscious. And there was someone with her. And Bethany said that she was carried by a warm, whispering wind. And I didn't quite understand. I was like, what do you mean? She said, that's the way it was. It's like a wind just kind of lifted me up. And in this field, she was in this field, she saw creatures and people from various time periods. And each one shared whispers of wisdom. And she said, on the breeze, like the tales of courage and love and resilience. And Bethany felt comforted by the feeling of unity and purpose. Now, she doesn't know I don't know how long she was out. She doesn't know how long she is out. Could that have been, I don't know. It could have been a near-death experience or not, or just completely knocked out, but that's a story. Now, I did ask Dr. Long about, Arthur. I'll do one more. Arthur, he's 80 years old. He was a retired pastor. He's passed away since, from Texas. And he collapsed in his home due to heart failure. And so Arthur said he came to, and he walked along a path. It was a pure light. And alongside him were angels that radiated warmth and even acceptance, and each one appearing as a familiar parishioner that he had thought that he had lost. And they offered him a glimpse of the lives that he had touched during the lives of his service. And each step on this radiant path, he said, filled him with the knowledge of profound impact and incomplete work. He was revived by EMTs. His wife said that when he had the heart attack and he stopped breathing, from the time that happened and the EMTs arrived, she says there was probably no activity, about 9 minutes. And so he came back. Now, I asked Dr. Long about what about the negative NDEs? Have there been any reports of negative ones? And this is what he said.
Sometimes experiences are mixed. In other words, they may encounter frightening or even hellish realms. Often that's the first part of the experience. And then the second, typically longer part of the experience, they change over or are taken from that area and have a typical positive, blissful experience. I would say as far as experiences that have substantial hellish content, probably about 2%, 1 or 2%. First of all, I want to emphasize that from the best evidence that we have, we can't conclusively say that the people that had hellish experiences had that as a consequence of themselves being antisocial or because of their own personal intellectual, moral failure, any other kind of failure that we know. Seemingly, good and upright people can have this as well as anybody else. So if you have someone who's had a frightening or hellish near-death experience, by no means does that mean that they have been morally judged by on high. I would have to emphasize that. Now, the largest study of these frightening experiences was Dr. Barbara Romer, a physician I knew well. Unfortunately, she died a few years ago, but she wrote a book called Less Than Positive Near-Death Experiences was the title of it, and it was about these frightening experiences. Her conclusion, and I think it's the best writing on this we have, was that after people have these frightening or hellish experiences, they still have at least the same probability of making positive life changes as people that have a pleasant near-death experience. In other words, seemingly paradoxically, they, like other near-death experiencers, after they have integrated the experience, which can take years, they tend to not fear death. They become less materialistic, more loving, value-loving relationships, more interested in God, et cetera, just like other near-death experiencers.
Very interesting. Now, I did talk about, I'm going to tell you mine for those of you who have not heard of this before. So I'm going to talk about that because I think it's important to share mine because it was profound. But let me tell you a couple of scary ones that is a little spooky, but I wanted to share the good and the bad and the ugly. Okay, so this one was Christine. So Christine was a 45-year-old stockbroker, and she had a car accident, and it left her clinically dead. 9 minutes. And her experience was terrifying. She says she found herself in a dark, oppressive void filled with distant cries and screaming, she said. She felt a sense of being weighed down until a hand, she said, familiar yet distant, grabbed hers and pulled her towards a shimmering staircase, leading her upwards, determined to lead a very, and then she came to, and she determined to lead a positive change. Christine awoke in the ICU, and she completely committed herself to helping those less fortunate, believing that what she encountered was a warning to direct her life towards empathy and compassion. And another scary story was Leon. He's a 53-year-old. He was an attorney. He's passed away since. He suffered a heart attack in the middle, well, not in the trial, but he had left, gone to the restroom, and he had a heart attack. And in those critical moments, he said he was pulled into a dark chamber. He described echoes of great regret, cries, missed opportunities. He said that the air was very thick with the weight of decisions made for power and wealth rather for helping other people. He said he felt the oppression that he put on others. And as he said, shadowy figures pointed out paths not taken. And he said he felt the crushing burden of his choices. So before long, a flame, he said he saw a flame beckoning him toward understanding and redemption. And Leon was revived. Leon, that was 10 minutes. There was nothing. There was no pulse. That someone just tried to take his pulse. There was no pulse for 10 minutes. And he recognized the opportunity he was given to change. He left the law firm, dedicated his life to championing for people that are wrongly accused. And he has transformed his entire legal knowledge into a force for good. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about, since we have a couple more minutes left, or about 20 more minutes or so, I'm going to talk about my story and what I experienced, because it certainly was profound for me. And I talked to Dr. Long about this, and he said 100% you had a near-death experience. So I had a scope done, and my mom had passed away in 2014. For those of you who've heard this, just indulge me for a moment, but because many people have not. So she had passed away in 2014. This was in 2015 when I had my scope. And I was worried about the scope because I had other issues. So I was kind of concerned about it. The surgeon was fantastic. He was one of the best. I mean, he knew his stuff. But here's what happened. So he said, okay, we're going to, count down to 10 and you'll just go drift off to sleep. I said, okay. So I counted down to 10 and I was drifted down, and then I was awakened. I was awakened by a loud, obnoxious noise. It was behind me. And what I could not understand, I couldn't turn around to see what it was. That was kind of strange. It never dawned on me that I was the patient, ever. I as a matter of fact, I looked over to my left and I could see the doctor, the surgeon. The surgeon was panicked. I mean, I could see his eyes. I mean, he was really, I don't know what he was saying, but he was pointing to somebody behind me, I guess. But I couldn't see behind me. I couldn't turn around. I didn't know why I couldn't turn around, just see what was going on. I just couldn't. But I wanted to communicate to the doctor to say, dude, what's going on? Well, how can I help you? I wanted to help him. It never dawned on me that I was the patient. Never dawned on me. So there's a loud noise going off behind me. That was annoying. And I looked to my left and he was really panicking. At that moment, as cliche as it sounds, there was the brightest light that I have saw right behind him. It was blinding. It was a light that was so radiant. And behind him comes a silhouette of a woman, and she's walking. I could clearly see this silhouette of a woman, and she comes into focus. And I looked, and originally I thought this was she was an angel. Beautiful, stunning. And what was stunning is the radiance about her, the joy. And again, people who talk about having near-death experiences, the word joy doesn't even come 1%. It doesn't even describe 1% of the joy. I can't. There are no words. But the joy, the happiness, the peace, it was radiating. I mean, everywhere. I thought, man, and I looked closer, and when it seemed like it came into focus, I thought, that's mom. That's mom. But she looked like she was in her 20s. Beautiful. I mean, I wish there was a word, because there's not. I think the only way you could describe it is if you put joy, radiating, bright, warm, happiness, love, compassion, empathy. You have to put all those words together to make one word. And even that doesn't come close. It was that type of power. And so I looked, I said, that is mom, 100%. And she placed her right hand on the doctor's shoulder. He then took a breath. He went, I saw him. He was like, took a breath, and he did something. I don't know. He said something. I couldn't hear him. But it was weird because the noise was still going off, but that wasn't so annoying when I saw my mom. And he did something, and he pointed to somebody behind me, and then that noise went off. And then I looked at her. She smiled. She nodded. She faded away. The only thing that I remember is I came to in the recovery room, and I saw my sister Jennifer, and I remember this very clearly. I saw mom. I saw mom. I was like, I saw mom. And my sister Jennifer said, everybody knows in the entire hospital that you saw mom because you were screaming it. She said, you were screaming it at the top of your lungs, all the way from the surgery room to the recovery room. You wouldn't stop screaming it. You were screaming it. Now, I don't remember that because I was still under propofol. So, but I said, I saw her. And what was interesting is when it was time for me to leave, the operating nurse that was in the operating room, she came in the room. She said, okay, are you ready to be wheeled down? Now, I've done enough chaplaincy in the hospital that I know the operating room nurse doesn't, because they're getting ready for the next surgery. They have a porter. That's what porters are for. And I even told her, I said, now, wait a minute, where's the porter here? And I told her, I said, where are the porters? She said, well, I'm going to take you down. And I thought that was odd. So we were going in the elevator, and I told the nurse, I said, look, I know I saw my mom. I saw her. And then her exact words says, I'm sorry, you'll have to speak to your surgeon about that incident. So, okay. So I talked to Dr. Long about this. Dr. Jeffrey Long is a world-leading expert. He said, James, 100% you clinically died. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And here's what I can prove it. I said, okay, prove it to me. He said, number one, there is a 0% chance of dreaming in propofol. It doesn't happen. It can't happen. You don't go into REM, which is rapid eye movement. So anybody who says there's a chance, it cannot. I'm telling you, as a medical doctor, I am a scientist. It can't happen. And he said, and also the fact that you were screaming that you saw your mother nonstop from the operating room to the recovery room, you couldn't have faked that because you were still under propofol. You were still under anesthesia. So he said that those two elements alone proves to me without question you clinically died. And then he said something that I had never thought about before. He said, and do you realize that my mom was she worked in the medical field, And she said, do you realize that when your mom placed her hand on the doctor's shoulders, she works in the medical field. She worked in the medical field. She was guiding him. She was helping him. And when he said that, I just never connected those dots. I thought, wow, that made me silent for a little bit. Here's what I know for a fact. Look, if I know what a dream is, I mean, I think anybody who has common sense, you know what a dream is. Friends, this was not a dream. And first of all, you can't dream. Under propofol, you can't. There's no such thing. So for those naysayers who are going to say, oh, it's a dream, you can't. That's a medical doc. That is science. That is fact. Because everybody wants to say science. Science said there's a 0% chance. You can't do it. I know what a dream is. I was 100% alert, more so actually than I am now. I was fully aware. So I know what a dream is like. This was not a dream. This was 100, like I'm sitting here in this chair right now. I'm telling you, it was more real than that. So, well, yeah, I mean, again, the fact that I was screaming, I saw my mom nonstop from the operating room to the recovery room, which I don't remember. 100%, Dr. Long said, there's no way you could have faked that because you're still on anesthesia. There's no way. No, the surgeon just said that there were issues, but no one wanted to talk to me about it. I don't know if because maybe of lawsuits or whatever, but I'm like, dude, I'm not going to sue anybody. That was a profound experience for me. Do all NDE survivor immediately know where they are? No, I didn't. So when I was in the hospital, remember, I didn't even know that I was the patient. I didn't even know that never even dawned. I didn't even know I was in the hospital. All I know is this surgeon. It never dawned on me that I was in the hospital. It never dawned on me that I was the patient. All I know is this surgeon was freaking out and I wanted to help him. That's all I wanted to do is say, how can I help you? But I couldn't communicate I could not communicate to him. And it was odd. The only noise that I could hear was that loud, obnoxious noise. And by the way, that loud, obnoxious noise, that's important. And I asked Dr. Long, what was that annoying thing? He said, that was the anesthesiologist machine going off. You died. So what are you talking about? He said, when you flatline, it makes a really loud noise to alert the doctors, the surgeons, that the patient has flatlined. So it was just annoying. I couldn't turn around. I don't know why I couldn't turn around to look at it. That was kind of odd. I couldn't see my body. It was almost like I had blinders on that I could just see outward. I could just see outward. I couldn't see my body at all. It was, all I know, I was looking left this way and the doctor was standing and I couldn't calm him down. And I was trying to help him. So, dude, freak, just go listen to some John Denver or something. Just chill. I was just trying to help him. But no question, no ifs, ands, or buts about this. This was not a dream. This was a profound, profound experience. And when I saw my mom, look, you don't need to worry about if your family is okay. Is your family happy? If they're in heaven, let me tell you something. If your family members have 1%, just 1% of the joy that my mom had, your family is good. I mean, it was profound. It was profound. I'll never, ever forget that experience in my entire life. And my sister Jennifer was there. She's like, oh yeah, you were screaming it. I wouldn't stop. She said, you were screaming. No, when I woke up, the only thing that I remember when I woke up, when I came through from anesthesia, the very first thing that I saw my sister, and I said, Jennifer, I saw Mom. And Jennifer's like, we all know. We all know you did. The whole hospital. She said, I was screaming it. And I wouldn't stop. From all the way from the operating room to the recovery room, she heard me. She heard me all the way down the hallway. That's how loud I was screaming it. No, I wasn't. No, because I just come out of anesthesia. So no, it was. Yeah, I agree, Mr. Brutus. I wish there was a way. I wish there was a way that I could show you or use words to describe the joy that was in my mom's, not only in her face, just everywhere. Everywhere. If I could, the light was coming from her face. It was just so bright and happy and peace and joy. Everything about her was joy. If there was, I just wish there was a word, but there isn't. There isn't. And so that was a profound experience for me. You know, I've always believed in life after death, always. That experience for me, and I will say this, I don't know, glowing is not even, that's a glowing amplified times a billion, Susie. When you say glowing amplified times a billion, it was so bright. When she first appeared, it was so bright, it was blinding. And I felt like my eyes had to adjust to the brightness as she came into focus. And, you know, she was radiant. Yeah. And here's what I'm going to say to all of you. I don't know. I've always believed my mom was in heaven, and I've always believed in heaven. Always have. I don't really think, in my opinion, I don't think this experience was for me. I think this experience was for you guys. For those of you who are struggling with death, who are worried about death, radiating ecstasy. I mean, I think that's what I've come to accept, that I don't think this experience was for me to have it and it's mine. No, I think this experience that I had was for you guys. Those of you who are struggling with death, those of you who are struggling or worrying about your loved ones being happy and being at peace, you can let that go. You can let it go. And so hopefully, you know, my experience brings some of you to peace who are struggling with this. So anyway, let me just close this out. For those of you who are listening to this on podcast, we say goodnight to you guys. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow we're live again at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is the Sacred Division Weekend Edition. It's the Weekend Edition. There's a lot of articles, a lot of cool articles that we never, you know, I always, you know, wait until the next night or the next day to talk about. So make sure you tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. One more time, don't forget, everybody, please go to KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. Click on the shop link. Click on my name. They have brand new St. Benedict items. Please purchase them. 100% of the profits that would go to me. We as a community, we are donating to the MKS Kids Foundation. They have an art. There they are right there. There's the friends right there. Right there, friends. I just pinned them. 100% of the profits that would go to me, we are donating to the MKS Kids Foundation. It's an orphanage in Uganda, in Africa. Let's help them out. They're brand new items that the KGRADB has on there. So kgradb.com, click on the shop link. Click on my name and make sure you buy. And let's get them some money and help them out. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So for those of you on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Rumble, and KGRADB Radio, remember I tell you, your value does not decrease based on someone's inability or refusal to see your worth. You're priceless, and don't let anyone tell you or convince you otherwise. And you do not need to fear death. I promise you. God bless.